final one with Man-Thing before Morbius took over in Adventure in Fear number 20. So, because Man-Thing was getting his own story. Man-Thing was getting his own book. So, Howard was in 19, he was in Man-Thing number 1, and then he fell off the cosmic stairs and then would start showing up in stories in Giant-Sized Man-Thing, which those stories actually introduced Bessie the Hell Cow. And we all love the Hell Cow.
Of course. I had first appearance of Hell Cow.
And then he would end up getting, in 1976, he would get his own book, Howard the Duck. Now, the thing with Howard was his books were not set in New York, which most Marvel stories are set in New York. Howard was in Cleveland, Ohio. Which he would always reference, why the hell did he end up in fucking Cleveland, Ohio? And it's always funny to me that in New York, you know, you have Iron Man flying through, you know, the sky. You have Spider-Man swinging. You have the Incredible Hulk, you know, doing his shit. Ghost Rider. But then everybody's weirded out by a talking duck. You have, you know, the Fantastic Four fighting Mole Men and Galactus on a daily basis, yet a talking duck in Cleveland, Ohio is like the weirdest thing anybody's ever fucking seen.
And it was, the book itself is unlike anything Marvel put out at the time. I mean, it was a weird, like, it was like this, it wasn't all about necessarily the capes, and it was kind of its own thing.
It was a satirical book for the most part.
Yeah, it's a satire and a political commentary, and
yeah. Well, you know, the commentary on politics, the youth of the nation, what was in at the time.
It was kind of really like almost like a really light-hearted. I think of it kind of as a really light-hearted version of like what R. Crumb was doing at the underground comics and stuff.
Yeah.
Not as X-rated, you know, just like a.
Well, that there's one whole issue where, I want to say it might have been, what was it, number 4? So Howard and Beverly. Now Beverly Switzler, unlike the movie where she's a musician, in the book she's a model. She's an aspiring model. And her and Howard do, you know, form a friendship and a bond. And but they go and they see a kung fu movie. So this is like the late 70s. So kung fu exploitation films are big. And they go see a kung fu movie, and all these kids are loving kung fu movies. And one thing leads to another, to where Howard has to go and be trained in the art of Quack Fu and become a martial arts master in order to defeat this guy in the book. So it's all, it's all satirical. Howard ran for president. There was a whole...
Shang-Chi ran into Howard in that, didn't he?
Shang-Chi ran into Howard. The first issue of Howard had Spider-Man.
I think it's not the third one, is it? Was Shang-Chi in it? I don't remember.
I gotta pull it out. But Spider-Man's been in there. Shang-Chi's shown up with him. He's had a suit of Howard had a suit of armor made, and he became the Iron Duck, which basically he looked like a walking fire hydrant with springs on his feet. He, like I said, he ran for president against Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter.
Well, most recently, he's Deadpool the Duck. There's a version of Howard as Deadpool.
Howard is a very important character because throughout everything, he's kind of been that character that has always said... He's been kind of like, if you really want to think about it, Howard is that voice of reason in an unreasonable world in Marvel. He's always questioning why this shit is happening, when this is just, it would be just easier to do this thing instead of these grandiose things that happen in the Marvel Universe. I mean, like, when he was running for president, he said, I'm going to run on a very loose platform. I'm not just going to speak it, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. You know, so everywhere he went, he would take video cameras. And the only reason he lost the election was because people were mad that he was in a relationship with a human. They didn't like the cross-species relationship. It was a scandal that he was found. The pictures surfaced of Howard in a bathtub with Beverly, and it caused a big stir that he had to drop out of the presidential race. But to this day, I campaign for Howard every election year.
Yeah, you do.
I do. So Howard, unlike everybody else, where villains will show up, Howard kind of falls into his stories. Like he should. It's all by circumstance that these things happen to him. He never
And
goes
like
looking for
everything
trouble.
since the beginning, to even how he even got into the Marvel universe was all just by accident.
It's totally by accident, but along the way, Howard has become important. He's always showing up in weird places. His main source of income is he's a taxi driver. He was a taxi driver in Cleveland, but he's also been called in by Doctor Strange from time to time. The Marvel Treasury Edition. I actually have it now put up, Chief, over here. That you bought me. Howard the Duck Marvel Treasury Edition, where he is with the Defenders.
Yeah. It seems like the weird big cosmic entities like Eternity and the Living Tribunal and shit. It's almost like they manipulate the beings of the Marvel universe, and somehow Howard is this. And almost in the same way that Bilbo Baggins was chosen to get the ring in The Hobbit, Howard has been chosen for major cosmic events that he was a part of.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole story of Man Thing. Now this was a later version. This was a later series of Man Thing where the Nexus was broken up into like fragments. Like something happened with the Nexus, and one of the fragments of the Nexus was in Howard.
Yeah.
So Man Thing literally had to like take his arm and like gelatinize it and shove it down Howard's throat to get the piece of the Nexus, because Howard was like a ticking time bomb with this piece of Nexus inside of him. And Howard he's run for president. He had in my opinion, he had one of the best side stories in the original Civil War event. When all the superheroes had to register because of the Superhero Registration Act.
Tax free. Tax free duck.
Howard went to register in Cleveland as a superhero, and Bev was dressed up as his sidekick. And they go to the SHIELD headquarters to get registered, and SHIELD pulls out this huge file of everything bad that's happened because of Howard the Duck in Cleveland, and has said, we're not even going to acknowledge your existence. We are not going to even acknowledge that you exist. There is no such thing as Howard the Duck on our books. And Beverly was upset. She was like, I'm so sorry. And Howard's like, what are you talking about? I don't exist. I don't have to pay taxes. I don't have to pay all these parking tickets I've got. I'm fucking a free duck, Now, sadly, that got overturned later on. He ended up getting his recognition back. She-Hulk represented him in court and got him reinstated. But for people who may not read other stories in the Marvel universe, like other books, you don't really know how important Howard is. If you don't read Marvel Zombies, you don't know how important Howard is. Howard led a team in Marvel Zombies 5 to quell the Marvel Zombie infestation. It was him and Machine Man.
Yeah, well, it's weird too that he's associated with those characters tend to run in that Man Thing, Machine Man, Howard, She-Hulk. There's a certain core group around Howard. Franklin Richards, to a degree, is kind of included in that.
Yep, the Daydreamers story. There was a 3 or 4 issue book called Daydreamers. And it was like Franklin Richards, a couple characters from, I think, Generation X, and Howard. And they were all in, Franklin's, weird, made-up world.
Yeah. Well, I'm not... I have to go do some back reading with Fantastic Four. There's a certain era of Fantastic Four that I'm missing from lore. But I know in the 80s, Franklin Richards was this godlike being that was... beyond her level capabilities, assuming that because of Reed and Sue's cosmic rays or whatever, Franklin turned out to be some sort of hugely powerful god. But I'm not. He like in the later on, like in the Hickman Fantastic Four stuff, he doesn't. He's super intelligent, but he doesn't seem to use that godlike power that he has. Or maybe when he did the Heroes Reborn thing, I think is when he recreated the universe, and maybe he expended all the energy. I'm not entirely sure. I have to go back and reread that. But we're talking about Howard, not Franklin Richards. So we'll talk about Franklin Richards another time.
We'll get to Franklin Richards in due time. Howard would always his original book ran for about 33 issues, and 30 to 33 issues. And let me make sure. I'm the Howard the Duck expert, and I need to make sure I get that right.
Yeah, that's there's things I don't. We didn't
33
do
issues.
research.
It was 33 issues. It was 33 issues, and then Howard would start showing up in different books. He would show up in Ghost Rider. He would show up in She-Hulk. He in fact, in the Ghost Rider story arc that he showed up in, Jennifer Kale, who we don't see much. I think she was in Weird World during Secret Wars.
Yeah, she was Doctor Strange's wife, right? And then he abandoned her to the dark dimension or some shit.
She was she's a sorceress. I know who you're talking about. I don't know, was that her that Doctor Strange? Or am I thinking about the other one? I know who you're talking about. But she's a sorceress we don't see much anymore. You know, you got Doctor Strange as a sorcerer.
Well, she came back in that Fearless Defenders arc, and when all the boyfriends came back, and I think that's where she was bitching at Doctor Strange for abandoning her in some dimension for so long or something.
Was that her, or there's another? Was that Clea?
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. Yeah, whatever happened to it? No, didn't she go off and ascend to some godhood or something?
No, she was. Clea returns, and it is revealed that she had been hiding in Odin's Hall thanks to Valkyrie, who comes to ask a favor of her to restore the recently deceased Annabelle Riggs to life after performing a spell to resurrect her, which causes Annabelle and Valkyrie. Clea was the one in Fearless Defenders.
Right. Okay. All right. And then but Jennifer Kale, didn't she ascend to some other level of existence or something? And
something like that. Yeah, she's been. She was there when Howard was first brought in with the Nexus and everything like that. And she is the one that kind of ended up bringing Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur into modern day at one point. And Devil Dinosaur actually tried to eat Howard until Johnny Blaze intercepted and saved him. We'll do a Jennifer Kale episode at one point. You know, she's a forgotten character.
See, yeah, exactly. There's stuff. There's so many characters in the Marvel universe that it would be impossible to know all of everything about them. That's why I've always said I don't know everything about all these characters. Even I got to go and research some shit once in a while.
Yeah,
because there's so much. There's decades and decades of stories and reboots and other universes and continuity and
so many. And Howard would never. Very rarely was he ever big in main story. It was always those side stories. So Fear Itself is a perfect example, where you had the main Fear Itself, but if anybody who read Fear Itself knows, there was a shit ton of Fear Itself tie-in books.
Oh yeah, it goes on forever, man. And a lot of them are in the back issue bins at my shop.
Oh yeah. So there was a series called The Fearsome Four in Fear Itself, and that was She-Hulk, Frankenstein's monster, Nighthawk, and Howard trying to stop Man-Thing. Because Man-Thing, he who knows fear burns at the touch of the Man-Thing. Man-Thing has this empathic ability. So with Fear Itself, Man-Thing goes fucking berserk. He goes fucking nutsoid. And they have to team up to take down Man-Thing because Man-Thing